Hi, so I'm doing my presentation on the David Nyland article, Heterosexism and Sports Talk Radio. I want to start off with my three terms that I want to bring up from the reading. First term is heterosexism, which kind of refers to the idea of heterosexuality being seen as the norm and homosexuality and other sexualities being seen as, the other and abnormal. It's kind of like a specialized form of homophobia. The second term I want to bring up is homonormativity, which refers to the idea of heterosexual like norms and constructs being forced on homosexual people or LGBT people, in order to sort of force them to conform lest they not be admitted into mainstream society. Sort of like think like masculine feminine in a relationship or like settling down white picket fence. And then the last term I want to bring up is hegemonic masculinity, which refers to the domination of men in our society, and how a lot of that is because these men seek validation from each other, and a lot of it has to do with the macho masculine idea, how men need to constantly prove their masculinity to each other and to themselves, and how that in turn oppresses heterosexual men specifically, and how that oppresses women and LGBT people in the grand scheme of things. So the article itself talks about on Sports Talk Radio and how it kind of cultivates this space for heterosexual men, specifically white heterosexual men, to sort of tune out the plights of women and LGBT people that are prevalent in our mainstream society. And one argument that I really agreed with from the article was when they call out the Jim Rome. It's like this famous sports talk radio host that they talk about in the article, and they call out him for being a performative ally, which I really agreed with, because when he in the article, when he talks about being homophobic, when he talks out against homophobia, he's very surface level on it. He almost sometimes only calls out a singular bigot or doesn't really address the societal issue behind it and how it's especially heavily stigmatized in sports. And I really agreed with the article when it brought up, his performativeness and how, just saying the right stuff doesn't make it the right, doesn't make it him some great ally. One thing I disagreed with was the idea of homonormativity, a term I brought up earlier. I agree with the idea, and I agree that it is forced on a lot of LGBT people. But the way the article made it seem like it was, something that every LGBT person is inherently forced into doing, which I disagree with. I think certain LGBT people want that sort of, white picket fence lifestyle. And, no, I'm not saying, they're all doing it just so they can fit in either, right? Some people like to do it because they want to have that sort of life. And so I feel like the article didn't really address that. And that's kind of an argument I didn't fully agree with, but I do see where they're coming from. And it is forced on a lot of LGBT people. So, next I want to talk about an example I've seen in the media before. It's a show called Glee. And on that show, there was a character named David Karofsky, who's this like football player. He's also like a homophobic bully. He later comes out as gay, and he moves schools, and he joins this new school's football team. And his new teammates are heavily homophobic, right? They write slurs on his locker, and make him, out him to everyone. And he didn't even tell them. They found out on their own. They snooped. And to me, that highlights, this idea of, aggressive homophobia in athletics and sports, and how even something like a high school football team is rife with it. So the two media examples that I included alongside this presentation, the first is a clip of a professional football player talking football as in football across the pond football, not American football, talking about how rampant homophobia is in the sports industry, and how difficult it is for gay athletes to really like thrive. And I thought that clip was really important because it's someone in the industry talking about it, and it really ties into the article, and it also ties into what we're talking about in class in terms of sexuality. And then the second video is of Jim Rome himself, the one I mentioned from the article, the main focus of the article, the Jim Rome show. It's when he called this athlete a woman's name, like the referenced a female athlete. And what I thought was really important about the video, not only because it ties into the article, as in like it's a video mentioned in the article, it highlights how important masculinity is to these heterosexual men. This Everett guy was so offended by the idea of being called like a woman's name, like being referred to as a woman, that he lashed out aggressively. And to me, that kind of highlights the importance of masculinity, like how, and it kind of highlights that idea of hegemonic masculinity too. So I thought that was a really important example, and really relates to the idea of how we view gender in our society. So yeah, thanks for listening. Have a good day.